Hey guys, welcome to session 36 of Java Full Stack Made Easy. So last session we discussed about optional class, right? And how optional is created, how do we create an empty optional and how do we create a nullable optional, right? So we discussed about an optional and also we have discussed the final point about the optional was that it is specially created for return types of the methods, right? So this was the last demo that I gave you, right? Demo 8 get name. Okay, so I guess I did not provide a solution to you. Let's go back to the Eclipse and I'll be providing the solution for this. We have already discussed that, right? So string get name and string can return null, whereas yeah, might return null, and we have to check that. Similarly, if the return type is an optional return type, at that time obviously uh, it gives an information to the caller that this particular program might return a null value. Fine, so we will see that in this example and see how things go around with the optional. And also in today's example, we will be talking about the real-time use of an optional, where we will be implementing again method name. So I guess I did not give you this, right? So that should be the last thing which I should have provided you. So I'll be adding it here itself. Let's call it as demo 6 customer solution. So this is what I did before, where I just took a string that might return a null value and then an optional string that might return a null value. That means an empty optional. So whenever there is a chance of returning an empty optional, that means a null value, it is always better to use a optional rather than just using a normal object. What it does, let's understand that in a very simple term. That is, say there are two developers, developer 1 and developer 2. So what optional actually does is just tells the second developer that this method might return a null value. So there are two developers. This developer 1 is creating some XYZ method, okay? So which might return a null value. Okay, and this particular person is trying to access that XYZ method. Okay, and since it might return a null value, so this developer has to inform this developer that please do a null check, or else for every method he cannot go and do a null check, right? So he cannot do a null check for every method. For every method he has to do that, right? So what from Java 8 what we started doing was, if any method returns optional, method returns optional, what does that mean? It means the caller has to perform a null check. That's it. So it's not always you're going to perform a null check. You have to only perform that. You have to only do that when there is an optional. So you have to know whether the optional contains the object or it is empty. So that's what we have discussed here in the previous example. So there was get name and there was get name without any optional. So for this get name without any optional value, what I have to do is I have to, like, when I do this, I get a null pointer exception. I have to always go for what? I have to always go for a null check. I have to always check for a null value. If I don't do that, then I might end up getting a null pointer exception. So similarly, if I go with the above case, that is with the value with the method returning an optional. So at that time, since the method itself returns the optional, like the second method, here since the method returns an optional, get name, I know that its return type is an optional. So because its return type is an optional, I know that it might return an empty optional. So that's why I will always perform this check. So this is what an optional can do in a if you want to understand it in a very easier way, just imagine this scenario. There are two developers. One developer is developing a method which might return a null value. If this might return a null value, return type should be optional, so that he is informing the other developers, whoever is calling this XYZ method, that you have to perform a null check because that optional might be empty. Okay, so let's see one more example and finish off this concept of an optional method there. Okay, so for that, what I will do is, now I'll close this customer, and since we are already discussing and already know about the concept of player that we have implemented in our all previous examples, let's take a player object. Okay, so here is our player object containing name, jersey number, role and team. So let's take that player object, and what we will have is, inside this particular player we will have a player to find the player based on the jersey number, right? So that's what I want to perform. And there will be a collection of players, and out of that collection of player I want to actually find the player based on the jersey number. So I will create, first of all, I'll just clean up everything that I have written here, and let's create a function and call that as find player by jersey number. Okay, so which will contain what, which will take the players, and then which will take a jersey number and search for the player. So there will be a list of player, we'll call it as players. So as of now I'm not initializing all the players inside that. I'll just be creating something like find by jersey number. Okay, so that's what I am looking for. And somebody is gonna give me int jersey number, and based on that I'm gonna find the player and also return a player. Okay, so whatever player is found, I want to return that particular player, and I will be searching the players inside this, right? So we know that to search the player from players, so we can simply go for enhanced for loop, or we can also do what, we can make use of the Java 8 feature, right? We can go for a lambda expression, and then we can use a stream and then perform a filter and then search for the player, right? So that can be done, or a traditional way for we can iterate over it, and if a player jersey number equals to jersey number, then we can return that particular player. So let's do it traditional way. As of now we can use any way. Okay, so let's find a player by jersey number. I have a player P out of the players, and then I'll simply say if P dot jersey number, get jersey number equal to the given jersey number here, jersey number, then return the player. That's it. That's what I want to. So in else case, like if it comes out of this particular loop and it never finds out the player, then what needs to be done? So in that case, I'm returning a null value because nothing is found. So I'm returning a null value. So in this class, what I'm going to do is in Java 8 demos, the constructor, I'll be initializing all the players. Okay, so which will be players dot, yeah, players is equal to arrays dot as list. I can keep on adding the players here. So let's keep on adding the players, which will be new player, so which takes the name, jersey number and role. So let's give some name, jersey number and the role. So similarly, I want more player objects to be created. Let's create 2, 3, 4 players we will create, and that will be initialized to this particular players here. Rohit, Sachin and Rahul. Fine. So all right, so I have the players, and out of that players I'm gonna search for the player. So here I'll be creating a Java 8 demos instance of that, j equals to new Java 8 demos, and then I will say j dot find player by jersey number. Now I'm finding the player 10 based on the jersey number, and I will create another player object, call it as found player is equal to, and then I will say system.out.println found player is something which I want to print, right? So this is what we generally do. So let's save and run this, and it's fine. So Sachin is there, so we have found Sachin, and we are returning that. But there is a possibility that a user might search for somebody called as 11, which is not there, right? So as this particular player is not there, it is going to return us a null value here, right? So if it goes inside the loop, does not find any player that equals to the jersey numbers, then it is going to throw us a null pointer exception, right? If I want to just say found player dot get name, I want to just print the name of that particular player. If the player is found like player 10, then the name of that particular player will be printed to me. If not, if somebody is searching for player like this, at that time I'm bound to get a null pointer exception, right? So in this case, what needs to be done? We have to manually check the null every time whenever we are trying to find a player. So at that time, what we have to do is we have to check whether the player is present or not, right? And then what we have to do is if the player is found, then give the name, or else say that player is not found. So we have to always perform this in this case. If found player not equal to null. So in this case, we might forget to do this, right? Like just now I did. In else case, then simply say player not found. So this is fine. So now what I have to do in this case is that the problem in this case, the drawback of this is that we have to manually do a null check. That's the first drawback, and we have to always do it, right? If we forget to perform a null check, at that time we end up getting a null pointer exception. So if we end up getting a null pointer exception, then that terminates the flow of a program, right? So this is not what you say expressive enough to tell future readers that the value might be absent or might be empty, or maybe for the future the callers, that means this particular here, it is the method is not created in a way that tells the caller that it might return you an empty or a null value. So this was the problem for which optional came into picture. So this is how we used to handle it before. So let me go and create a day 36 repository first. Day 36 demo 1 without optional. So without optional, what we have to do, we have to always let's say have to remember null checks. Fine. So we have to remember it every time. You have to always remember it. And if we forget to remember, then what? Forget to remember. Then what happens? A null pointer exception is thrown, right? So if a null pointer exception is thrown, then definitely the program gets terminated and it is not safe. So let's commit this. So this was the problem, right? Without optional. So what solution optional is giving? The optional says what? This is going to return a player, right? So it optional says, yes, since it is going to return a player and there is a chance that the player might be null. So in that case, you simply say what? This is an optional. Okay. So the moment you say optional, what happens is the end user now gets to know that there is a chance that this player might be null. Right? So what we can once again do is we can search for these things, that is the player and all that. So if the player is found, then do something. If not, then do something else, right? So what we will do now, in this case, we will be returning an empty optional of player, or we can simply return an empty player. That would say that the player is not found, right? So that way we can actually perform this. Fine. So let's see how can we do that once again, since we are opting for an old way of doing this. So if the player is found, then in the optional we have to return what? Return the optional dot of the player value, that is p, that needs to be written. If it comes out and does not, it does not, there is nothing, then optional dot, an empty optional needs to be returned here. Either we can return an empty optional, or we can go for an off null label, right? That's what we have seen in the first session. So since I am either returning a null or I'm returning an optional, so at that time here itself the user gets to know that no, this does not return me a player, it actually returns me an optional of player, right? So since it returns me an optional of player, the method that I am calling now might actually return us an empty optional, right? So there is a possibility now. So because there is a possibility that this might return an empty optional, so at that time what we can do is we can say if found player dot, we can say for what is present. If it is present, then found player dot get, because get method gives us the player, dot get name. Or else in the empty case, then we can say simply player not found. So here we are actually forced to perform this if we cannot forget this. Whereas in the previous case we might forget it. Here we cannot forget it. That's because it's an optional, right? So since it is an optional, we cannot take it like this. It's not possible at all. The method itself is returning as an optional. Since the method is returning optional, so here it is kind of an alert. So because an optional is returned, I as a programmer should know that yes, this might return a null value, an empty value. So I have to perform an empty check. And now since the player is not there, so it is player not found. And if the player is there, then obviously it is going to return me the player name. So that's how we can make use of optional in the real time as well. And also in this example as well, what I've done is I'm simply using the optional as a return type. So this is the main purpose of introducing optional into Java 8. Fine. So let me just give it as demo 2 with optional. All right. So now what I will suggest you one thing, that is in this case, what I've done is I have definitely created an optional, and I loop through with it. And if I found the player, I'm returning an optional of player. And if not, I'm returning an empty optional. So now I want you to make use of what the filters and find the player and return the optional based on that. Okay, so you can go for the find first and return it based on that. You can use a return player dot stream, then you can perform a filter, then check the player dot get jersey number equals to jersey number or not, and then you can do a find first and simply you can return the optional player. Fine. So that way your optional might be empty or might contain the player depending upon the jersey number. Okay, that is the Java 8 way of doing the thing. Fine. So I just encourage you to do that on your own. I'm just giving you a hint. You can directly write a return, then you can use the stream filter find first, and that returns a optional of player. So let's save it. And that's it about the concept of optional. And maybe in the future I will be telling you about more Java 8 features, Java 15 features and all that. For that, we will be creating a different playlist altogether. So our major goal here is to move ahead on Java full stack. So because Java full stack still requires some more technology to be discussed. So in the next session, in the next class, what we will be doing is let's go back to the architecture that we discussed on day 1. Video 1, if you go through, then you will see the technology architecture that I discussed. So I discussed about the 3 layers of the technologies that I'm going to use. So at the database side, I told you that I will be using SQL and MongoDB both. And at the business logic side, I will be using Java and Spring. So this is what I told you. And at the UI side, we will be using HTML, CSS, Bootstrap, and JavaScript and Angular. So in my next session, I will try to cover up these things, the HTML, CSS, Bootstrap and JavaScript. And to be very, very frank, I will not be wasting a lot of sessions or a lot of time on HTML and CSS and Bootstrap. Simple demos I will show you. Uh, the very basic things that should take at least some 2-3 sessions, not more than that. That's because my actual focus is on Angular, not on all these for JavaScript, Bootstrap, CSS, and HTML. So maybe at least for this particular series, I will not go in detail on all these topics. Yes, definitely we will be going in detail with Angular. That's because Angular we will be connecting that with Spring, and Spring will be connected to either SQL or it will be connected to Mongo database. So that's what my focus is on. So Java, why did I focus so much on Java is because the entire Spring is built on top of Java itself. Fine. So it is a Java full stack course. So we completed Java. So around 35, 36 sessions it took us. Then our next target would be to complete this 4 technology in as less sessions as possible. So probably I'll take some 2-3 sessions, not more than that. We will finish off HTML, CSS, Bootstrap and JavaScript all together. And then we will focus on Angular, and after that Spring, and then these two. Okay, so hopefully we are done with the concept of Java in this particular session. So if you are liking in the series, do subscribe to my channel, encourage me to create more such content. See you in the next video. Thank you.